All right, what's up, everyone? Today we're gonna jump in and talk about training to failure, and it's out there and what it is, how to do it. Should you train to failure? Those types of things. We'll kind of dive into that here. And basically, when you think of training to failure, I think most people just think of pure exhaustion. Say you're doing push-ups, and you just go until you can't do another push-up. And there's a time and place for training to failure. I think with things like maybe sets of push-ups or a lot of like bicep work or tricep, those isolation exercises. But I mean, it's not necessary to. You don't have to train to failure all the time to see progress, to see results, to build strength, to build muscle. Yeah, you want to be training up in that, think of that RPE scale. So the rate of perceived exertion, the one being a super, not really doing, I'm sitting here, this is probably a one. I'm not giving any lot of effort. It's basically just breathing and talking. Then a 10 is like that super high, a sprint, a super heavy max effort squat. And yeah, you don't want to always be pushing that. You don't need to do that every day. You don't need to go tens every day where you're squatting or you're, say, a 300-pound squat. That's like super tough for you, and you're just, and you get the bar and you can't get it, and you fail and you miss reps all the time. And we don't want to do that. We don't need to be missing reps, especially if we're trying to build muscle, build power, build speed, build strength. It's going to happen. Life happens, especially if you're training heavy. Injuries happen, whatever. Things happen where maybe you miss reps, and that's fine. But if we're always chasing that, that's not what we want. I think a lot of time, and it really depends on what you're doing, what exercise, what lift, what movement you're doing, and what the goal is, what you're looking to get out of it. If it's a heavy squat, a sprint, a heavy bench press, you probably you don't want to be training to complete failure where you're unable to do a rep. I always like to stick with that, 7 to 9 for most things, 7 to 9 on the RPE scale. So you got a few reps left in the tank. But if you're always just training until you literally can't lift anymore, a squat, a bench press, a deadlift, trying to think of something else, a sprint. I mean, sprinting, you don't want to be training to failure because then you just fall and trip and puke and all that stuff. And that's not even sprinting, because the main thing with sprinting is speed and getting your body primed and ready to go fast. Where if in lifting, if it's a heavy squat or a bench, you're just burying yourself every time on that rep and going to failure. You're probably going to get hurt more often than not, and you're not going to see a lot of progress. You're going to be sore, stiff, and like I said, higher risk of injury, which we don't want. Things happen, yes, but we're not trying to get injured. And it's just always thinking you have to go till failure. In the terms of failure where you just can't do another rep. Yes, as I said, there is a time and place for it. Maybe you're doing a drop set of a lighter bench press after something, and you're going until you can't really go anymore. But then it's still, you don't go until you just can't get a rep. You go until that last rep is like, I don't think I can get another rep. And it takes time. You probably actually have to train to failure when you're starting out a little bit more to know what failure is and know what your body can do and what you can push your body to, because it's not about babying yourself. It's about being smart, pushing yourself to your goals, but you have to know, and you don't know unless you go there first. So it can be important in the beginning, if you're starting out, to learn what failure is and kind of get buried in a squat or a bench press or something like that. I had one of my youth athletes the other day he wanted to go. He's like, "Oh, can we do heavy sets of 3 on bench press?" And he's not the strongest kid, but he works hard and he's getting better, and that's what we want. So I said, "Well, if you think you can do that, I'll spot you." And we wanted to go 3. He got 1, and he put it to 1, and he kind of knew he couldn't go anymore. I could tell it was going to be. He's definitely not getting 3. I kind of knew before he started because he's never done anywhere close to that weight. But sometimes you just let him go and let him realize that, and got to push yourself and figure out what your body can handle and what it can't handle, and what failure is like, and what pushing it to those next levels are like. But in fact, it could be just like that, and figuring it out. But then you know what it's like to stress and stimulate the body in that manner and have it go forward. But again, we don't want to chase that as we get older and all the time, and especially with our main compound movements, heavy lifts. Like I said, if you're doing like a drop set, there could be a time and place for that where you're going until failure. Not necessarily failure in the sense of you're not able to lift it, but more technical or form failure where maybe you're deadlifting and you feel the back start to round because you've done a lot of reps or sets and it's just getting heavy and it's like, not even worth it. Or you know something off in your bench press or something, and the form starts to break down. And again, that takes experience. That takes a coach watching. That takes you knowing your body and how it works and how to perform the lifts meant for your body. Because again, everyone's going to squat different. We're all going to hinge different. We're all going to push and pull different, just based on our body and how we compensate and what feels good for us. So that's different, and that's learning your body again and how it works. But again, there's time and place. Things like a lot of body weight exercise, you could do that stuff to failure. A lot of isolation, like I mentioned before, the bicep. Maybe you're doing like some banded bicep curls or tricep push downs and things like that. Push ups. You can do that stuff until failure because there's not a ton of risk of injury. There's not a ton of risk of. It's just like you just can't do another one. So I mean, your push up, you're not going to go far. You're going to go a few inches to the floor if you can't get another one. You're not at risk of dropping a barbell or dumbbell or something on you, whereas bench press, you could drop that especially if you're by yourself and crush your chest or whatever it is. But there is a time and place, and it's all into context. That's the whole thing with training. You can't just watch some video and know everything about what this person did or why they're doing it. You have to be in their shoes, be in that moment. And training at failure, it can have a place. Again, with the heavier stuff, you probably don't need to go that, but you need to, in the beginning, I think it is important to push yourself to know what it is. And for things like sprinting, it's that whole conditioning thing that's not where people are just running kids into the ground and just making stuff not fun. And like that's not what it's about. Sprinting is supposed to be going fast, getting enough rest and repeating. And conditioning, obviously, you can change up the resting stuff and things like that, the work to rest ratio and all this different stuff, the energy system, all this different stuff that's falls into it. But again, if you're just training to failure where your legs can't move anymore, then you're going to be sore for weeks and weeks and weeks and not able to walk the next few days. And we don't want that. We're not trying to get you fatigued. We want you to be healthy, to be able to move, to be able to enjoy life, especially as you're an athlete for life and getting older into your 30s, 40s, 50s. It's not about being sore and sweaty. If you want to do that, just go out and do some yard work. I mean, things that you haven't done, move in weird ways, then you'll be sore. But your workout should have you feeling better. And if you're always just training to failure on everything, you're not going to make the progress you want. You're going to be doing too much for like too long and stuff like that. And just feeling sore is not a good measure of productivity, progress. Unless you're just someone whose goal is just to be as sore as possible, then maybe you're doing something right. Then train to failure all the time. But again, it does have a time and place, depending on your goals, depending on what you're doing, depending on your experience level, the exercise, the context of the exercise, the purpose of the exercise. But again, heavy lifts all the time, you don't need to be going and burying yourself just because you can't get one more rep. Save a few reps in the tank, spread out into more sets, those types of things. There's so many different ways to do it. Training is all up to your imagination, creativity, and that's what it's really about. It's about getting you better. And if you're just training to failure all the time on these heavy lifts and sprints and stuff, you're not going to be getting much better. You're probably going to get injured more often. You're probably not going to feel as good. You're going to be sore all the time. And that's ultimately what we don't want. But again, if you're doing certain things, some drop sets or some body weight or isolation movements, the smaller muscles, the upper back, that type of stuff, hitting the biceps, triceps, calves, more things like that, you can go up to failure until you can't do it, and that's totally different. But again, all set the context, figure it out, learn your body, listen to your body, push your body, and know where those points of failure are. The technical failure, the fatigued failure where you literally are just too tired to do anymore, or just when something doesn't feel right in a rep, in the form, in the movement. So that's my thoughts on that, guys. Any questions, any comments, drop them below, and we'll talk to you again soon.